keep an eye open so we know when to start.
Give Art 30 seconds.
Oh, good.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Admin Finance Committee of the Whole, March 4th, 6:30 at City Hall. We're doing a recap of all the changes that were done at the last two meetings. We're going to review the revisions discussed at the previous budget meeting. Attached are also the budget sheets and a recap sheet for each budget. We're going to hit, at the moment, page 2, page 34, and page 38. Page 2, Brian, you can start with that if you'd like.
Sure. Page 2 is a recap of the budget revisions for just the general fund. Again, we broke those out into three various funds. We had a couple revenue items at the top that I adjusted and added into the draft. Those are for our Cass Avenue buildings. There's some reimbursables at $5,000 each, which I did not include in the draft I have now. There's a couple of changes to the forestry budget in the municipal services. We talked about those last meeting, depending on what the county does on the 75th Street trees. And there were some tree removals that we had in the original draft that we were able to take out for about $6,900. The large item in there was the addition of the trackless, which is the equipment that we use for our sidewalks and our mowing of rights-of-ways and catch basins and things. And that is an amount, that particular item is an amount of not to exceed $135,000, and Dan's looking at some options that he'll bring back as soon as he has that. The police department, there was a number of reductions from the original draft. Those reductions resulted in $16,486. One of the reductions was in overtime for the Darien Fest. The chief took a look at that this year, and him and the department were able to save a few $1,000s there. So we did reduce that based on our actual expenses. In the business district, one minor change. It was in the original draft. There was just a $70 math total error, so I corrected that. And then secondly, we added, the council had asked to add $10,000 for that building to do some type of beautification projects. And obviously Dan will coordinate that with Chase. We were hoping that Chase gets going in the summer. Again, they haven't given us any official date when they're going to start, but in phone conversation, Dan was told they hope to start then. I've heard other comments from more of the local branch people that it might be later than that. But again, there's some things we could do there to the grounds themselves.
That was pretty much it.
So yeah, that's all in all the fund balance.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was also a change in the reduction in community development. There was a typo in the original budget of $19,008, and there was a couple of again increased revenues in the general fund for $8,000, bringing the final budget amount fund balance to $2,590,000, which also included. What I didn't mention, I'm sorry, there's a transfer to capital. The original budget had $3 million. This revised draft has $2.9 million.
And when you look at the three-year forecast, you might give them a recap of that. Page 3.
Yeah, page 3 on the 3-year forecast. We maintain at least projected fund balances at this point of, again, $2.5 million, $2.6 million in fiscal year 15, and then $2.7 million in fiscal year 16, and that includes, forecasting some other things like replacement of the municipal services vehicles in the street department. Gives us some room to do that, and all of our obligations. So the expenses go from about 10.8 million in 14 to 11 million in fiscal year 15 and 11.2 million in fiscal year 16.
Questions, anybody on the general fund? Anything? No, huh? Flip over to page 34, I think it is. Page 34 covers the capital projects funds.
There conversely, from the transfer from the general fund, we have a reduction here from 3 million as a transfer into 2.9 million, and we included a grant amount of $37,500, and we also added that to the expense.
Yeah, grant reimbursements, 37,500.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the light project and make sure that amount, those two amounts should.
The light project was 210,000.
Oh, the light project I have down here at 37, and actually I show the revenue at 37.5, so I'll probably.
Brian, I think
Yeah.
the 7,500 was the reimbursement from the
Oh,
high school.
I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yes, that was the yeah, that's why there was another 7,500. Thanks.
So
Yeah,
thanks.
no, you're right. Thank you. Then we have the capital projects. The ditch projects were adjusted from the original budget. Also, the culvert projects were adjusted based on Dan actually receiving and the council approving the bid quotes, and that a total reduction of 32,000. So all in all, that budget was reduced by 30,000, and that final budget amount was 3.7 million. And-
Also, we clarified the point, you might mention it, on what are ditches, and we've got some culverts and things like that. It's 800 and some thousand dollars, if I remember the number.
Yeah, the ditches are Roger Road, final budget amount 194,000. The ditch on Eleanor, 69th to Holly is 193, and Brookbank to Holly, 303,000. Then there's the large culvert at 79th and Farmingdale that needs to be replaced, and that's 107,000. And then the culvert replacement on Richard Road is 20,500. And
Light project.
yeah, that's the grant project for the Public Works building.
Questions, anybody on page 34? Try to page 38 then. If I can find 38. 38 covers the water fund.
Yeah, 38, we included a recap on the water fund as well as the water depreciation fund. Very, very small changes there. The change, one item to the DuPage Water Commission, I increased that by 54,508, recognizing the increase from the DuPage Water Commission. We had another month total in, so we were able to have one more month to reflect actual costs. The liability insurance was changed, actually only a small amount, $150 was missing from the original water fund budget for safety vests. And then in the water depreciation fund, the only change was I took the amount of 50,000 and made that, added 20,000 of that for 70,000 for this current fiscal year based on the water tanks that, the two water tanks that need repairs that Dan talked about last week.
On that remaining item is for you to discuss the fund balance for the water fund.
Page 39.
39.
Is the water fund, and it shows, as the city council will talk tonight during the council meeting, a rate of increase from $590 per thousand to $640 per thousand. Again, that accounts for the increases that we're receiving from the DuPage Water Commission and City of Chicago. And the fund balance for fiscal year 14 will be estimated 850,000, and then in fiscal year 15 is 828,000, and in fiscal year 16 is 748,000. And again, when we go out those second 2 years, Obviously, the longer out you go, the harder it is to, estimate that, but we have all these numbers. We know what the increases are for the DuPage Water Commission, so we think these numbers are on.
And these numbers depend on the Water Commission, which depends on the city of Darien, or city of Chicago for funding.
Correct, the city of Chicago is the water source, and they pump that water to the DuPage Water Commission, who in turn pumps it to all their customers, and us being one of them. City of Chicago, or actually the DuPage Water Commission, is the group that charges us a rate, and they've adopted the rate through the next couple of fiscal years, this year and 2 other fiscal years. So we know what that rate is going to be that they're going to charge us. When they adopted their ordinance, they adopted a 3-year ordinance.
There's also municipal services, water depreciation fund budget, fund balance, that goes out several years,
Yes, and that is,
bottom of page 45.
yeah, the water depreciation fund is similar to the capital projects fund, except the water depreciation fund covers water fund projects, and at the end of the fiscal year 14, we'll have approximately 493,000, and then looking out in fiscal year 16, we'll have about 138,000, and then, I'm sorry, in fiscal year 15 and fiscal year 16, about 398,000. And the primary source of revenue for that fund is a transfer in from the water fund. So we had a transfer in this current fiscal year, and we don't have any transfers planned for fiscal year 14 or 15, but a $300,000 transfer for fiscal year 16. And our water fund is very weather dependent. If you get hot and dry summers, you have a tendency, residents do, to use more water. And conversely, if you have a real wet summertime, the water revenue and our water expense typically then goes down. But we use a consistent set of numbers when we do our estimates, so it's better to compare those.
Okay, any questions, everybody? Questions, ideas they want to bring up?
On the water fund or in general?
And I guess in general,
Yeah, I do. I missed the, obviously, the last city, or the committee of the whole finance meeting, and I know that the crossing guard issue came up, and I see that, I guess I have a question with respect to forecasting 3 years out. Are we carrying those crossing guards into, 2-3 years into the future? Or are we anticipating having that discussion with the district to phase them out at some point? Because basically, I've gotten a lot of feedback from Ward 6 residents, and there wasn't a single one that wants to, pay for these crossing guards.
Yeah, I could tell you the budget that I prepared for the council has crossing guards in this fiscal year and 2 years out.
But I'm pretty sure I heard a couple of the aldermen say that, we should be getting out of that business. When is that time frame based on those aldermen that had that?
you want to vote again? We voted last time.
Well, I know you voted, but
So we keep repeating the vote.
I'm not asking for a repeat vote. I'm
Okay.
asking for what is the plan to phase out 2 or 3 years out in the future? I mean, if that's, I understand the voting process.
I would like us just to go to District 61 and tell them next year's the last year, that's it. I don't want it for next year, but.
We told them that last year.
I know.
And you
but
said
I-
the last time, you want to
Well,
vote
yeah.
again, we'll vote again.
No, I don't know if we need to vote again. I just think, I agree with Sylvia, though. I think we
But
need.
just because it's in the budget doesn't mean you won't get another chance along the way to not fund it. I mean, you put it in the budget, and then in 4 or 5 months, you can decide in 4 or 5 months that you don't want to spend the money.
Well,
It
that's
isn't like you're
not fair to the
guaranteed.
schools though, John, because now they are counting on our budget being passed with that $24,000.
That's true.
Not
I
necessarily.
believe
It makes
should
it more
either be in
difficult.
or out so that they can make their decisions for the next fiscal year. So I disagree with what you're saying. I don't think I don't think we should remove it if we leave it in. I don't think we
Well,
should
it is
remove
in.
it mid-year.
It is in.
Right.
And I don't agree with moving
don't
it
agree
out.
it should
I'm
be
just
in.
saying that a person, it doesn't mean you can't. You can avoid it just by not spending the money. Go
I
ahead.
guess I have a question, because I would think that the way Alderman Podorowski said could still be true, because they haven't budgeted until their fiscal year starts in July. So as far as the procedure goes, Brian, would that be you contacting them to try to make it so that they put it in their budget this year?
Yeah, I mean, what I did last time is about the same time last budget period, I just emailed the superintendent telling him that our city council was looking at eliminating, our expense of crossing guards. They would need to pick that up. So it was about the same time
Okay,
as now, so.
that would be the
that would-
procedure.
yeah,
You'll try
I
to
would-
work on that to get it implemented.
Well-
Why would they do that if we already have it in our budget?
No.
We're just doing it safe and,
Well, I know, I mean, before I approach a school district, I would need some direction from the council to make sure that that is the plan. I mean, if the council's saying this is the last year, we're going to fund it, then I would tell Bob that the city council's determined this is the last year that they would fund the crossing guards
We
there.
haven't said that.
No, I
Right.
know, but I'm answering.
Okay.
Tina asked me how I would communicate that to the school
Right.
district.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm a little surprised that this really issue has become such a hot issue. It's, let me just review how the school districts work and what they're obligated and not obligated to do. The school districts are obligated to provide busing to students who live 1.5 miles and farther away. They're obligated by the federal government and the state. And in return, they do that, and then in return, they get reimbursed for their expenses for busing the students, up to 80% of their costs. But they're not obligated to provide crossing guards for students who walk to school. And if they do spend money, they don't get reimbursed. So as a result, they're reluctant to do it. Now, if we give an ultimatum and drop it, what guarantee do we have that they will pick it up in the future? Especially since we're talking about only 2 schools, not talking about districts now. We're talking about providing the service to the students who walk to school at Lace and Eisenhower. And as we know, they are on 71st Street and very heavy intersections, particularly Cass and 71st. That's 75th. That's probably one of our most dangerous intersections. So instead of working through an ultimatum and then throwing threats in a way that we're going to stop them, why don't we, as I repeated this in one of our budget meetings, why don't we talk this over with the school district and come up with a resolution? Because if we drop it, and if they don't pick it up, then we're basically throwing the kids in harm's way. So let's not decide at this point what we're going to do next year, year after year, and we can talk to the District 61 officials, we can talk to other school districts, and we can find an amicable solution that works for everybody and go forward from there. I'd say let's just leave it at that.
Anybody? Any more comments? Yes.
switching gears, I received a communication, which I'll bring up in our meeting, but it does
Have
have,
to get the microphone a little bit closer.
I received a communication, which I'll bring up in the meeting, but it does have to do with the budget. And it's from a resident named Tammy Holland Donor.
Donner.
Donner? I don't know exactly where she lives, but
She lives on Crest.
on Crest?
Yeah.
Okay, she was following up on a previous complaint about the Crest Basin, and she was asking Dan, as a follow-up, did we ever get a resolution? Could we plant some trees there? Because last time we talked to her, we said it would be possibly in a discussion for the budget this year. So she's asking if we can revisit that. And she had said that she complimented us on the signs, but she said people entering from the east, it looks bad, and she's been talking to other neighbors in the area, and they're wondering if we can do something. So I wanted to bring that up.
Do you wish to make a motion?
Well, I'm looking at the capital, that we over budgeted by 32,000, and I'm wondering if that might be a place to slot a couple trees. It's just an idea.
I guess we need to understand whether Dan has had a conversation with the county at all about this issue.
Yes, I've had several conversations. As of recently, I've asked DuPage County to supply us with the report. They responded by they were going to provide us a formal letter. Again, my comment back to them was, well, just give us what you have. We don't need anything formal, just to see, you know, what's going on with the wetland and the basin according to a plan that was proposed in 2005. Again, it is of my opinion, and from what I've seen, that it does not meet the requirements of the plan. The county does state that it does meet a standard. Again, what that standard is being based on, I don't know. So right now, the county has come back and asked for a meeting. I've told them yes, that we would be happy to attend a meeting. So I'm not sure if the county will do anything, but I did request of the county to reconsider this idea regarding the evergreen tree plantings.
Any more?
So I'm wondering if we can put some money aside for that, and then if the county comes through, obviously, we won't need it.
Don't vote it in then. If
What?
the county gives you the money or it works, you just, when it comes up, you just don't use your money.
Right. So I'm saying, could we put it in?
Tina's asking to put some amount in the budget.
24.5, I think it is.
Did we set aside that 11,000?
It was
we were
less
talking
than
about
that.
for beautification?
We set aside 10,000 for beautification.
10,000,
Well,
that's
just
what-
for
that's what
the-
she's talking about.
We set aside just for the Cass Avenue building only, yes.
Right. So I think the estimate was 11,000 for
It was
this
either
one.
11,000 or 11,800. I can't recall. I have to take a look at.
And if I recall correctly, that was a lot of trees. So
Correct.
maybe we can even scale down that project and just put, I don't know, 4 or 5. I mean, they grow.
And just so everyone understands, the purpose of this was to mask the Crest Basin, and staff had proposed plantings of, I want to say approximately 40 trees, if I'm not mistaken, and those trees were going to be at an average height of approximately 8 foot. The problem or the concern is that if we only go look at doing maybe 4 or 5, whatever the case is, depending on what the future years what we plan to do in the future years, those trees will not grow symmetrically. So we'll have different height variations. So I just want to caution the council in that respect.
The concern is to make sure that the basin and the plantings that they agreed to do back in 2005, is it,
Correct.
are what's there now. And if it's not, they've got to live up to that agreement. And if they were to live up to that agreement, that basin would improve dramatically in its appearance. So that's the hope here.
Anything else? I think we have a budget.
She's asking that we add some money or use some money.
No one's asking me anything.
Well, I mentioned it before, if there's
Do you
some,
want to make a motion?
sure, in the amount of 11,000.
I think the original amount, Dan, I had a unit cost of $265 for the 42 trees is 11,130, and maybe it's rounded to 11.
That could very well be,
Okay.
yes.
No motion?
So Tina, I think you're
Budget
asking
meeting.
for 11,000 would be?
Yes,
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion?
She did,
sure.
she did.
Then make
Motion,
one.
a motion to put in 11,000. I don't know what category that would be, but
We originally had it in forestry,
24.
in street, the general fund, public works, streets, forestry, 8350. That's where it was planned for.
so I motion to add the 11,000 in forestry on account number 8350.
Is there a second? Yes, there's a second. All in favor, raise your hand, of $11,000. 1, 2, 0. Have I missed a motion?
No, she made a motion, I made the second.
You know, I don't even, to be honest, I don't know what that looks like. We still have till April. I mean, I'd like to, if I don't want to vote for or against something I don't really understand the scope of and who's responsible for it.
Why don't you explain it? 'cause
You know.
you
No,
talked
I mean, I'd
Well,
like
that's
to
a
see
good point.
some-
Visually, you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
mean,
good
if
point.
Dan could bring something to a meeting before our final budget, it would be helpful to see that.
We do it at the budget meeting, the city council and budget meeting. Right now, we have 2 votes for it, the rest So I think the item is canceled for the moment. Okay, I
Wait,
think
just to
we-
be clear, wait, I want to make sure.
I would
So-
like to see more information before I have the
Why don't
opportunity.
we hold off on, I'll withdraw my second, she could withdraw her motion. Why don't we have some visuals presented
Yeah.
to us so we can,
So
I mean,
next-
I drove over there, I took a look at it. I mean, and you see that as you're coming
Yeah.
from the east, all the time, and it does look terrible.
So for the next city council meeting, under department head reports, Dan, you can have something.
Yeah, and if, Dan, you could follow up with the, if you have any updates from the county.
Sure,
that
there's
would
been
be
a chain of
helpful.
emails that have been
Yeah,
coming along, and I'll stay on top of that.
right.
You could take a picture of it, Dan, and do your superimposed trees on it like you do with your,
Okay,
do
so
that.
the motion was no longer there was only one. We're back where we were 5 minutes ago. I think we have a budget, Mayor. Should I ask, do I ask them overall, or is it?
I guess so, I guess that would be. any
Okay,
good
we have a
point.
budget, we have all sets of changes we've made on 2 meetings. All in favor of accepting the budget with the changes, raise your right
Well,
hand.
John, just to clarify, though, that the actual budget vote would come at an ordinance in the first meeting in
Right.
April, so.
But I want to make sure I
Right,
got
I just
some-
want to make sure the aldermen know they're not officially voting on approving something tonight. I think you're looking for direction, so we can at least,
I can
bring
call
it-
the meeting to an end.
yeah, I just want to make sure everybody realizes if they're voting yes tonight, the budget does get approved by ordinance at the first meeting in April.
All in favor of passing what we have for now, raise your hand.
For now.
I think we got a quorum. Thank you, Mayor, it's all yours.
Well, we were going to take a break for 1 minute, and